Hey guys, DJ here at Top Tech Cards and Games. Today I want to do a Forcible deck tech with you guys. I wanted to talk about Liberator over Win, Scheherazade control that I was testing for a while. The deck is extremely good against red reflect strategies. It is the dog in the worst of ways against Alice's World, but I think the matchup against red is extremely good, so if your meta has a lot of red reflect, I think it's a deck you should definitely consider trying out. It's a lot of fun to play, and it's a green deck, so it's a switch up from playing red, though. I mean, you might be an Alice's World player yourself, in which case there's not really a lot of reason to switch over to this. But I do think that it's a lot of fun to play. I get to play one of my favorite cards in the game, that being Scheherazade and Stories, so yeah, I was just really excited to play it. Scheherazade's always going to let us start with Magic Stone of Moonshade, so we have access to every color at the start of the game. We also have Moonshade's right. We also have one Magic Stone of Moonlight in our stone deck, since we can just get an extra Rainbow Stone, and this gives us basically perfect mana. Just having this in there, we're never able to miss on a colored source. If we were to play like a basic green stone, that would make our Gretel's a little bit worse. Then we have 4 each of Gusting Skies and Black Silence, and so we are playing Gretel, and we're playing white and black. Wow, that's amazing. Our ruler is Liberator of Wind. Like I said, let's just start with a stone. She flips for 1 green, flips over into Scheherazade. Scheherazade searches for a card from her deck and adds it to our hand, and taps to draw 2 cards if our hand is empty. For our creatures, we have a pile of ramp. We have 4 copies of Elvish Priest, 4 copies of Gretel, and 3 copies of Feathsing. Elvish Priest and Gretel really just gum up the board and give us a lot more mana to play with early on, which makes it much easier to interact with our opponent's threats. Feathsing does a little bit of that along with fixing colors. Man, I can't talk today. Help. But she also does an extremely good job of locking up land slots when they go to attack. So your opponent dumps a lot of resources into pumping them to get the burn trigger. You flash in Feathsing, it's going to stop the burn trigger as well as the attack damage, and go on to block something else. Just an incredibly useful card against all of the red aggro matchups, and just for adding extra mana to your board. For our finishers and our beatdown, we have 4 copies of Lucifer and 3 Celestial Wing Seraph. Not an incredibly vast threat department, but these guys get the job done. Both of them gain us life, and when you play Seraph, you get to search out Lucifer and get rid of one of your opponent's dudes, so they trade extremely efficiently and block quite well. There's just a ton of value packed into the card, so they're just the best finishers you can get in a deck like this without branching into other colors, I think. For our spells, we have 4 copies of Stories Told in 1001 Nights. Stories is one of the reasons I originally considered building this deck again. Against the more standard red reflect list, if you take out their Lancelots or their Cthulhu's, the game immediately becomes a lot harder for them to win. I know that seems very obvious, but I can't tell you the number of games playing against a Pumpkin Witch variant where I was able to take out all their Cthulhu's in the game, instantly tilted in my favor. The number of games were against the standard red-green one playing Split, where I was able to take their Lancelots out, and their other threats are just way more manageable at that point, since I just don't have to deal with the 4 Lancelots and their incredible board-clearing power. This card is just as strong as it was before. I think there was a point where this was the best card in the game. I don't think it's the best card in the game anymore because cards have gotten better, but I do think this card is still just absolutely insane. The ability to play it turn 2 off an elf is great too. This deck is extremely good on the play, better than it is on the draw. Obviously, that goes for every deck, but the gap in a deck like this where your options are, or not options, but the disparities between having the access to turn 2 this compared to playing turn 1 elf and having it Thundered is just absolutely insane. Not to say this deck is bad going second, you just have to play a lot differently. But on the play, being able to play this card on turn 2 and your opponent's turn 2 Lancelot is just absolutely backbreaking. We also have a decent suite of counter magic. We have 4 Seal of Wind and Light, 4 Wall of Wind, and 1 Absolute Cake Zone. I would have liked to fit a second Cake Zone in, actually, but I value a lot of the other cards in here pretty highly, so I wasn't able to fit a second one. Plus, Split is roughly, I don't know, probably 15-20% of the meta at most. Red decks are on the decline. Alice's World is on the up and up, which is, again, why I shelved the deck. And the red decks that do exist are largely Incarnate variants playing Necromancy, it seems to me, rather than Split variants. So the value of this just keeps diminishing, though it's not terrible against Alice's World. It's not good either. Wall of Wind is just great, especially if you're on the play, like I said. But just the tempo this offers you, your opponent's never able to play into it. They're just going to get blown out if they overextend, tap out into Wall of Wind. Countering anything is great. We're always going to have the mana for this since we start with a Rainbow Stone. It doesn't matter what we hit for the rest of our stones. We're going to be able to play this card. So having Counterspell is great. And negate the cantrips is fine too. Just countering spell. Every deck plays spells, right? Like even if they're mostly creatures, they have some kind of spell for us to hit. After that, we have 3 Scorn of Dark Alice. We're always going to be able to cast this turn 1 since our mana is perfect, which is huge. Against decks like Alice's World, we're going to be able to take their combo cards out of their hand, maybe take their Guivers out if that's what we're going to have trouble dealing with. Against red decks, we're going to be able to take out their 1-drop or take out like a Prisha. Since, like, let's say they have Prisha Lancelot, we can like discard the Prisha, stories the Lancelot. And it just is the most efficient way of dealing with a lot of those threats. I think this card's great. The information is great. Knowing what your opponent has in their hand makes playing your counterspells a lot easier. There's not a ton of, targeted discard in this game, really. There's just this and Nyarlathotep. So I don't know if, in general, Force players are extremely experienced with checking their opponent's hand and playing around all their cards. It becomes fairly obvious once you have the information, though, what you need to do with your counters and removal. And I think for control, that's just such a great asset to have. Next up, we have 2 copies of Dark Purge. While our mana is very good, I didn't think it was worth the risk of missing on stoning if we needed to play a turn 2. So I chose to go with 2 Dark Purges, which might not be good enough, actually. It always kills Prisha, and it kills Lancelot in response to your opponent's Reflect Pump. So, I don't know. Sometimes it's good enough, sometimes it's not. There's a lot of situations where like you just can't afford to miss on the stoning that turn, so Dark Purge got the nod instead. We also have 2 copies of Sign of the Future. Sign is just our generic defense against our opponent flooding the board on us. I mean, the ideal situation is for this card to just not be live ever in our games. But playing 2 of them to hedge on that is not necessary. I would say these are definitely cards you could replace in the deck list if you chose. But I think it is good to have a bit of a backup, especially since you can tutor them up with the flip Scheherazade. Maybe just play it as a 1-of even in that situation if you wanted to play something else in the deck. You could easily switch this to like 1 stoning, 1 sign, I guess. Maybe if that's more up your alley to just deal with 1 threat. Then we have 2 copies of Dreams of Juliet. This card's got insane utility actually in this deck. Like being able to pop a addition can be really useful sometimes. Drawing a card if you're just kind of bricked up is great. And Blink It Dude has so many applications, saving your guys from removal, blinking an opponent's creature so it can't attack. And these guys aren't enter abilities, they're just when they enter the field abilities. So if you blink either of these ones with Dreams of Juliet, you get the ability again. So this basically functions as a removal spell. It dodges removal. It can blink your opponent's attacker so it gains life. It draws a card and it kills an addition. Whatever effect you get off this card is going to be a good effect. You're going to be happy you cast it. So I think this card's extremely good. For a while I was considering playing it as a 3-of since the cantrip at worst, gets you a card deeper into your deck to find an answer. So, but yeah, this is just something that I was testing for a while. It's a deck that I had a lot of fun playing and was able to give me the throwback to playing Scheherazade from when this card came out. Not nearly as dominant now as it was before. This was the first Reflect, though, when it came out. I don't think a lot of people realized how good this card was at the time, though. As the format went on, I think the results spoke for themselves as Scheherazade quickly became the deck to play. But, now we have actual Reflect, which is quite a lot better than this card, especially if you're playing an aggressive strategy. But this deck is very good against red aggro, so if your meta is filled with that, I would definitely sleeve this up and try it. I think it's a lot more fun to play than Tree, which kind of does the same thing without being nearly as cool. So that's one reason to try this out. I think playing a Tree is stupid. But in general, it's also very bad against Alice's World, so you win some, you lose some, I guess. Hopefully your meta has red decks, and if it does play this, you're going to have a lot of fun, and people are going to be really upset when you stories their Lancelots and Cthulhu's. But that's all I got for right now, guys. We'll have another Forceful deck video coming soon. If you guys have anything you want to see, let me know down below in the comments. I'm doing Puss in Boots next because that's basically my favorite deck ever in the game, so I can't resist building it anytime it's remotely playable. But after that, it's kind of up to you guys. Let me know what you guys are thinking. If there's any decks you want to see, I'd be more than happy to build them and mess with them a little bit to throw a video together. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all soon.